Ladies and gents, what's going on? This is Tyler Dunn and Jim Monis at golongtd.com, right inside your email inbox, in the Substack app, wherever, however you read, you listen. We greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much for fueling our independent journalism. And when it comes to the good old Go Long show, we have to thank our pals at Fatty Beer. Speaking of beer, Jim, I'm recording with you at the go-to watering hole in Green Bay, Wisconsin. One of. Didn't really discriminate. Like a decade ago. It feels like it was yesterday. Walking in here to Hagemeister Park on Washington Street, Green Bay, Wisconsin, seeing my pal Corey behind the bar. It wasn't even like a, what's going on? We haven't seen each other in years. It was, hey, you want a spotted cow? Just got the spotted cow and off we go. Like it never left.
It's always the sign of a true place that feels like home. When you don't, it's not an overreaction. Let's get down to business. I used to have that in Folly Beach, South Carolina. I mean, when I walked into certain establishments, I wanted my shot of Jameson and my Miller High Life. I didn't have to say anything. You just walk in. You could be gone for a couple of years. You go back, shot and a beer.
It was so seamless that for a moment, I'm like, does he even remember who I am? There was like no reaction. It was just spotted cow. Yeah, spotted cow. And there we go. But they sponsored our rec basketball team, the Hagemeister Park Media Mafia. Infamously got off to an 0-7 start in the Pine Division here in Green Bay in 2012, 2013 maybe. Got to say, it was pretty embarrassing because we were all pretty athletic. But in this rec basketball, it was just different because you could play zone. We'd play like these 40 and 50. I think they even had a 60-year-old on one team. And they just pummeled us. We lost to them by like 40. It was awful. But when we were close to being 0-8, we won. And we came right here and celebrated in true 0-8, no we ain't fashion. I think a chant was started here at Hagemeister Park. But yes, so many memories being back here in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Love the town. Love the state. The fans, everybody knows what Packer fans are. As passionate as it gets, and we've got a lot brewing here at Go Long when it comes to the Packers for this week and beyond. Been able to sit down with some players, and we can talk about the Packers. I got into it with Bob McGinn at length, so if you really want the full breakdown, Bob, who never makes predictions and surprise, surprise, is often skeptical, some would say cynical when it comes to the Packers, sees a win. He sees Green Bay going to Dallas and winning, and he didn't really hesitate. So check that out if you'd like. Check out the podcast with Brett Favre. Brett really detailed what he sees in this team, what he sees in this quarterback. Loves it. I don't know where you want to start, Jim. I really want to touch on all of the games because maybe we say this every year, but I'm looking at these matchups and I'm like, this is going to be fun as hell. I love all of these games. You've got so many storylines. Like the script writers themselves put this together. But like, what game to you is most intriguing?
First of all, I'm with you right now on this weekend. To me, is more exciting than like Final Four weekend, college basketball. Like, no, Wild Card weekend is where it's at. It's Saturday, Sunday, and we get a Monday night. That's 3 nights of great action for the gambling world, for the football love world. Every matchup is fun. A favorite one, Stafford golf's hard to beat. That's a hard one for me to beat. I need to see how that plays out. But let me touch on the Green Bay game and we can move on because I know you and Bob hit that hard. And honestly, Bob does Green Bay more than anyone. But my 2 cents on the Green Bay game, I'm into. I like the 7.5. With that team because of I think Dallas's defense isn't good enough to really destroy, to cover that number against a Green Bay team that, let's face it, Mark Ross from NFL Network, who we had on the show, texted me the other night, and he's a Jordan Love guy just like you were. He was documented coming out of college. He respected that pick just like you did. And he asked me, are there 5 quarterbacks playing better than Jordan Love right now in the NFL? And it's debatable. I was like, no. I mean, you could say he's top. I said, obviously, he's top 10 right now, which we always like to talk about top 10, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line, he's good enough to win a playoff game. And I'm good taking the 7.5 there.
You just made me think of one of our Jordan Love stories. I know there's been a few, for better or worse. This has been a site for much Jordan Love content. But back in the offseason when Aaron Rodgers was holding the Packers hostage and wanted Brian Gutekunst fired, and the Packers were begging and pleading him to return, and eventually he did. Back then, when we had a Jordan Love story, I actually interviewed Mark Ross. I had to look it up, and I loved his perspective. Obviously, Mark, he's doing fantastic work at NFL Network now. But was an NFL exec for 20 years, I want to say, in different front offices, Eagles, Bills, Giants. This is what he said then, and I think it's really interesting. This would have been 2021. So since he said this, Tua, I definitely want to have a deep Tua conversation with you at some point, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He lights the league on fire with Mike McDaniel, and things end with a kaput in year 1, and it's kind of doing the same thing here in year 2. Here's what he said then. Quote, Tua was always shooting layups or open threes with that offense. Speaking about Tua at Alabama. He had the blocking. He had open guys. With Jordan, he was always trying to beat guys off the dribble or hit threes with people in his face because that team he had around him, the blocking was awful. The receivers were little dudes who couldn't get open. Every play for him, he had to do it. It was rare. It was 10% when it was just easy for him. That observation, that analysis from Mark stuck with me. That would have been the summer of 2021, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really seeing that now, I feel like, where I'm not out on Tua yet. Not even close.
Mm-hmm.
But he is at his best within the confines of the offense in which he's playing. Alabama, Mike McDaniel. I feel like Jordan Love, we're seeing a game that can adjust and improvise and adapt. And now he's reading the field and knowing exactly where he wants to go with the ball, play to play. Brian Flores, game 1 is showing blitz, dropping blitz, and that's what really gave him trouble. He was like 1 of 8 with a pick the first game. Second game, it didn't matter what Brian Flores was doing. Blitzing, stunting, dropping. He's seeing the field. And I don't see how Dallas can confuse him, even in Dallas. I don't think this is a defense that is ruthless and deceptive. And it's still a playoff game. I know you're giving me a look, Jim. And there's a stat out there that you'll probably touch on about first-year starters in playoff games. I'm just judging Jordan Love off of this season, what we've seen the last month, and it's damn good. And, of course, I'm not going to back off now. Jordan Love's going to go to Dallas and tear him to shreds.
No, so I'm Team Green Bay. I'm in with this. I'm invested. But what I was smiling about is the stat that I want to talk about really is more the fact that we're really not talking about Jordan Love. What we need to talk about for real with this game is Green Bay's defense isn't good. The yards per play, terrible. Points per game is not terrible. Points per play, I should say, which tells me they're living dangerously. And against Dallas, that's tough. You know what I mean? If it gets into a shootout, how do you feel about that? Like, do you feel good about Jordan Love in a shootout right now? Yeah. Because he's playing. Yeah, like that basketball mentality that Mark talked about and that stuck with you, he does play like that. He's so smooth with guys in his face, able to make those, off-angle throws. And it does seem seamless and effortless, and that's always the sign of somebody that has no ceiling almost. Where if you want to go to Tua quick, Tua to me, it's just we don't need to overanalyze it anymore. He has a ceiling. He's a good quarterback. He's a good starting quarterback in the NFL. We know what he is. He needs a lot of help. He's not going to necessarily elevate your team because he has limitations that we see every year. The same limitations we talk about, we see every year. It's not, but it doesn't mean you can't win with them. They've proven to be Miami, we're still now. I know we switched real quick, but Miami's offense is good enough to go to a Super Bowl. The thing, I still think they are, but they have to be perfect. They don't have room for any error.
Miami is going to have to make a difficult decision
Right.
contractually with Tua Tagovailoa soon. And, what is the number? I don't think it would keep going north of Herbert, north of Burrow, pressing the market to new heights. I'm kind of stopping myself short because I think that Tua does have a lot of traits that can win you a lot of games. He's accurate. He's going to hit guys in stride. It's that 4-1 Olympian track sprinter handing the baton to somebody at full speed. When you've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, like he does a lot of things exceptionally well. But there are times when you're watching a Miami game. Tell me if this throw kind of enters your memory, Jim. And it's like, no, this is his best throw. It's that in-breaking route where he kind of layers it, right? It's like over the linebackers, before the safeties. Like he that accuracy is perfect. But if that's not there, if that first read isn't there, if you could take that away, or Tyreek Hill's dropping the ball. Tyreek's had a lot of drops this year. Then it gets a little dicey, especially if the running game isn't going, especially if Raheem Mostert's hurt, like he was this last week with Waddle, with Chubb, with Phillips, with Xavier Howard, with Van Ginkel. I mean, they were down to a skeletal unit against the Bills. Then you run into trouble because the quarterbacks who can create and improvise and operate outside the confines of the play, you're going to need it over the course of 4 wins to get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl.
You asked, what do they do with Tua? Points per play, they're second. Yards per play, second. Third down, seventh. Red zone scoring touchdown percent, 2. Touchdowns per game, number 1. You have a legit good starting NFL quarterback. You don't need to overthink it. Get the deal that works for you. You said it, but those numbers, you can't lose that guy. How do you replace, who are you going to replace him with that are going to beat when you're ranked first and second in every important offensive category? Yeah. You're fine. Tua's good. He's not going to be special, but he's damn good in your offense. I just think when I think of guys that have, what the difference is, believe it or not, I feel like Purdy, who I feel like if we're talking about a guy that gets labeled sometimes, I hate it, but the whole he's just good because he's in the San Fran offense. I don't feel that way with Purdy. I see it differently. I think Purdy can get to his second, third reads and still throws them open. That's how advanced he is. And when I always say Purdy reminds me of Breeze when I was with the Saints. We talked about that before, where that's the first guy. Whenever I see Purdy play that offense, it's like that's how it looked in New Orleans. But Tua has a ceiling. Do the deal that works for you. You don't want to lose him, though.
It behooves Tua to get to that number 2 because his career was on the fast track toward being a backup before Mike McDaniel. He's going to want to stay with this coach in this offense. And I would think McDaniel will want to keep him. But it gets tougher, though. It does get tougher because they've had the benefit of spending like every team. Like when you've got a quarterback on that rookie. They can go out and just buy players.
Yeah, but
I think that's why it's got to be so demoralizing for Miami. Their season isn't over yet. I mean, they could go on a run. Who knows?
Isn't it funny how we've pretty much eliminated Miami because of the temperature, because of the weather?
I know it. We're picturing the Dolphins just, decomposing into mush out there in Kansas City.
I got to tell you, it's funny because we're just we're acting like Kansas City is the same Kansas City, and they're not. They haven't been close to a team that should just get a win given to them. You know what I mean? So it's unfortunate Miami. The numbers don't look good for Miami as far as their history of single temperature games, but we're bouncing around a lot. If you want to single in on, you want to go game by game and just, I know we started.
Let's stay on this one for a minute.
Okay.
They're all fascinating, but
yeah, they're fun games.
Miami's healthier than they were against Buffalo, I guess, however you decide to look at it. The way that like Robert Mays and Nate Tice put it, they've got the great athletic football show, is like Miami just doesn't have that venom on offense. And can't you see it? It just seemed like the first half of the season, that quick strike ability was there and just putting fear into a defense that one of these guys could go 70 yards at any moment. It's not like they're bad offensively. It's not like they're struggling, but it's just more plotting. And I guess if they're not the cobra with the venom, they're more of a garter snake at this point, just underneath a rock out back in the landscaping. Not that dangerous.
It's fair because think about it. It really goes back to what we just said. We just assume they can't play in a bad temperature game because that's not how they look on offense. Like they don't look like they can get down and dirty and run the ball like the Steelers. Well, the Steelers will do that every game, no matter if it's good weather or not. But the Bills can switch gears, I feel like. The Bills can get down and dirty if they have to. Where I don't know if Miami, I haven't seen that.
And I can't wait to bring that point up when we get to Bills Steelers. But on Miami, Kansas City, who do you have and why?
So I don't like the game. I don't usually mess with bad weather games like this because it just, to me, it throws out. I do so much analytically. It just throws out so much. So I'm probably not going to mess with it. If anything, I might take the over in the game. It's at 36.5, I think, which is a good number. And a game like this, you could get some turnovers. You could get some wild stuff in snow games that you don't expect sometimes. But no, I don't really like the game gambling wise.
So as we sit here, what is the weather report? I haven't looked at it recently.
It's like 0 snow, 0 degrees snow.
Yeah. Fun stuff. Kansas City does have a roster built for it. That defense is really good. I guess if the offense is going to struggle like they are and receivers are going to line up offsides on potentially game-winning plays and drop bombs and be all in all about as untrustworthy as it gets, it's good to have a defense playing like this. And Mahomes is what's the record? The stat thrown around 11-2 in the postseason, or is it 11-3? I think it's right to assume he will take it up to a different level, even though we really haven't seen it. I guess the Cincinnati game was a little better, but Cincinnati's defense isn't exactly lights out, and then they had the week of rest. So what Kansas City's offense is going to look like is kind of a mystery. How does the running game factor into it? Is Rashee Rice positioned to be that game-breaking threat that they're going to need to get back to the Super Bowl? I don't know. I guess I don't really have an answer. I feel like in this game, though, against the Miami Dolphins at Arrowhead, I'm taking KC. I think it will be low scoring by both teams' standard, and the home team wins. I don't know. I mean, is there a Tyreek revenge factor here? Maybe, but he didn't really play that exceptionally well against Buffalo. It drops, and the one snap he goes out, Tua throws into the double coverage. It's just, I don't know what to make of Miami.
Well, I think the Tyreek thing, it's just you feel like he's eliminated in this game because of the weather. Like his, you know what I mean? I feel like we're just not even thinking about his, you know, what his strength is. That's why it's so hard to picture Miami winning this game.
True. Okay, let's stay in the AFC then. Let's get to those Buffalo Bills in the number 2 slot hosting the number 7 seeded Pittsburgh Steelers, which first blush seems like a mismatch, correct? The Bills
It is.
would outweigh the Steelers in the talent department. I think that's fairly objective and obvious. this is what's funny about the NFL, though. Like, the week is so long, you can just fall into that paralysis by analysis and wonder, 30-mile-per-hour winds, 40-mile-per-hour winds, snow. No TJ Watt, but Marcus Golden. And they drafted somebody. They're a little better positioned to maybe withstand that loss. And Mason Rudolph, look at that passer rating. He hasn't thrown a pick. Where are you with this matchup? And where are you with the Buffalo Bills? Obviously, when people tune into this podcast, they want to know what you think about the team that you used to work for. Where are they right now? They're winning. They haven't lost in a long time. It hasn't been perfect, but they're winning.
And they're not playing great on offense. Like, when I say great, to the point we know they're capable of more, which says so much about how talented they are. To talk about what they did against Miami was incredible. I thought it was the story of the year is what the Bills defense did. That was Miami's game to win against Buffalo. They had Josh Allen. We talked about it. They had their turnovers. So for Buffalo to overcome that and play that kind of defense down in Miami against that team, I mean, what else do you want from this team? As far as you already know, I'm invested in the Bills all year. As far as I think they can win the Super Bowl, it starts this week. This is that show up and don't screw up game. Don't fumble the ball. Don't block. Don't have block kick. All the craziness that can happen in football. Now, that's what always is what the Steelers thrive on is, hey, we're going to hang around. We're going to hang around. The ball's going to pop loose. All of a sudden, the Steelers are going to be winning in the fourth quarter. But I don't see it that way. Bills just got to play clean. There's just no sign of anything that says the Steelers should beat Buffalo. Nothing. Other than without TJ Watt. I'm counting that Watt's out. I count that as a major miss.
I think this is a good test for the Bills because they've been preparing for this moment. It seems like Sean McDermott made a concerted effort to build a different offense. So reporting on the McDermott problem, it's in there. I think part 2, a longtime vet basically told me that offense is built to win in a dome. And everybody wants these home games in the playoffs, but why do you want those home games in the playoffs? Because your team is built to win in a dome. Isaiah McKenzie on the happy hour, what did he say himself? He said that would have been a different game against the Cincinnati Bengals if it's in a dome. That had to have been a factor in Ken Dorsey being replaced and Joe Brady taking over and Sean absolutely having his fingerprints all over the offense, for better or worse. He wants a team capable of winning a game in whatever weather conditions engulf Highmark Stadium Sunday. So if it's windy, if it's snowy, they've got those home playoff games. They earned it. They beat the Dolphins. They were multiple games back for multiple weeks, and they clawed their way to earn the right to host these playoff games. And McDermott and the Bills feel prepared to win that kind of game. If it is mucked up, if it is a Mike Tomlin Steelers, one blocked punt, one slip of a cornerback on George Pickens away from, in theory, the Bills are now built to switch gears, like you said. Okay, they're pyrotechnic and throwing it all over the place for most of the last 7 years. Where that isn't really what they are anymore. It's going to be hard to switch back to that gear. And that would be my concern with the Bills is to win a Super Bowl. I feel like you do need an offense that's explosive still, that is featuring Stephon Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel they're going to need that
against
Baltimore, against Kansas City, whoever. But for this, we're talking about the wild card games. For this wild card round against this opponent, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be mucked up. In theory, you've got the team now and the offense now to win that game.
Yeah, no, sign me up. Get it started. I said it's always when I was with the Saints, when you know you're good enough to win the Super Bowl, the regular season's painful. So long, painful. You just want the playoffs to start. And that's how I feel like the Bills are ready now. I think they find out we can't live that way next year. Next year, let's not get to this point where we got to win out to sneak in. Well, I shouldn't say they sneak in; they're the 2 seed, but which is funny.
I mean, they did kind of sneak in. They almost missed the playoffs completely.
A 2 seed sneaks in, but it's true, right? But no, I'm how I feel about this team. I think they're ready.
Is it close? This game?
No, because Tyler, it's the Steelers defense. It's not like it's that. Without Watt, it doesn't do it for me. Highsmith is obviously a game changer, but like I said, it's gonna. I just show me how if Mason Rudolph does this to a team that just shut down Miami.
So we're in agreement so far. Chiefs over Dolphins, Bills over Steelers,
Green
Bay over Dallas. Yeah. So let's stay in the AFC though. Houston, Cleveland. Any thoughts?
Yes, that game's fun. That is a good one to kick it off. As far as the spread goes, I'm going to take Cleveland because it's right under that 3 number. They're minus like 2.5. Because of rookie quarterbacks, man, we know how great Stroud is this year, and I am using the word great. Like he and Jordan Love they went right into that. How we always talk about quarterback tiers. Here, he and Jordan Love just entered the fun tier. The big boy tier. They're out of the mix of muck of everybody that we were wondering about. No, I can't wait to see if Flacco can pull this off. And just to think about, which he can, this defense for Cleveland's real. And when you have possibly, if it's not TJ Watt, it's Myles Garrett, who's the best player in defense in the NFL, in my opinion. So I'm cool with riding with Cleveland in that game against a rookie. And how I feel about Jim Schwartz. And I think he finds a way to get that done against a rookie quarterback as well. But that's going to be a good game. I'm not sitting there saying I definitely think Houston can win that game. I'm taking Cleveland, but tough one.
This is a tough one. You make a good point on Jim Schwartz against a rookie quarterback. The talent he has.
Playoff defense, Tyler, I swear to you, it's a whole new beast. And if you see Jordan Love, which I'm actually worried about him too, with the guy going against Dan Quinn and Stroud going against Jim Schwartz, that's the 2 things I'd worry about. Where I do believe where those great coordinators, they raise their game even more in the playoffs on defensive side.
No Tank Dell, but man, Nico Collins blew up 200 yards. They've got a special connection. If they can get Singletary, if they can get the run game going a little bit, to take a little – you are at home, and Stroud's been a hell of a lot better at home than on the road. I'm sure you've looked at those numbers.
And Cleveland's defense has not been as good on the road. So
right.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, that's a good sign. That points in Houston's favor. You're right.
I want to take the Texans, and I don't really have a logic to put behind it. I just feel like I want to see more of CJ Stroud, so I'm going to pick the Texans. Is that all right?
He's so good.
I want to see CJ Stroud. I don't want to see Joe Flacco.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
We'll leave it there. Because defensively, I mean, the Texans have holes.
Cleveland's good. Cleveland can throw the ball down the field now.
I can see Flacco lighting it up again.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that.
I can't. I mean, let's not think that the Colts are some great team that Houston just had to,
Right.
So against Minshew, that Colts. I mean, Houston's going to find out this is a big time defense. I mean, not that Stroud is capable of anything. He's that talented. So this is good fun matchup.
All right, we had to hit pause there, Jim, because I drank all my Spotted Cow. So we've got Spotted Cow number 2 here. For my money, still the best beer going. Cannot go wrong with Spotted Cow. It's smooth. Gets you through some good football talk. What's next? What game do you want to talk about?
How about Rams Detroit? This is awesome.
Sam Laporta injury. The Sam Laporta injury is a game changer for me.
100%. I'm invested. Like I said, Green Bay is going to be one of my good plays. The Rams is going to be one I'm investing in. I think that injury scares me. Goff needs him. He's a playmaker. He's not just a tight end check down guy. He makes Goff. He can make you look good as a quarterback. I do think that one is concerning. I also think Stafford, this offense right now, I don't think Detroit's defense is good at all. And it's not that the Rams' defense is much better, but Detroit's defense doesn't do it for me. So I'm going to take the Rams. Even if Detroit wins, I'm taking the 3.5 to get the technical side of it. I do like the points. But I could see Detroit winning, so that's why I like that 3.5. But I think the Rams can win this game.
I'm with you on the Lions defense. They need somebody else to win a damn one-on-one up front to take some pressure off Aiden Hutchinson, to take some pressure off of the secondary. I mean, they've gone through Bruce Irvin. They've gone through Isaiah Buggs and bringing Tyson Alualu back and the interior. I mean, they've tried every position. They could use James Houston, who broke his foot in week 2, and they sure as hell could use Aleem McNeil inside, who had 5 sacks in his first 12 games and gave you a presence. They need somebody. I feel like it's about stealing a possession or two, and we got into it with Bob, so I apologize for repeating myself. Like, if the Lions are going to win games, they're going to need their offense to put up a lot of points, and they're just going to need turnovers or fourth down stops. Or they're not going to be able to just go out there and morph into the 2000 Ravens, 85 Bears, stop offenses, drive in and drive out. Not at this point.
They are Detroit's defense, 27th points per play, 26th yards per play. Tyler, that's a one and done like recipe right there. No defense, can't do it. Like for me, I'm into quarterback and defense. Now it's not that the Rams aren't that much better. I mean, they're 18th and 19th in those categories on defense, so it's not like they're that much better. Gotcha. Both offenses are fascinating. Both offenses can run the ball. Both have quarterbacks that can just fire it around.
Give me the front office perspective, though, on what Les Snead and Sean McVay did to Jared Goff. They told Jared Goff, you ain't good enough. Get the hell out of here. We're banishing you to Detroit. We're going to send you off to this team that's won 1 playoff game since 1957, that has a new GM, has a new head coach, and oh, by the way, you're basically just a collateral damage here, Jared. Right? They're only taking you because we're giving them all these picks. That's what it was viewed as. Like, Goff had this terrible contract. Goff is, if we're going to talk about Tua as a quarterback in a system, which, like I said, I'm a little hesitant to go to that extreme, but that's kind of how the Rams viewed Goff. Like, within what they did offensively, that he was only going to take them so far. They thought they needed somebody that could kind of evolve their offense, and that somebody was Stafford. They did win a Super Bowl, so maybe that's more than enough for the Rams to feel good about that trade. But now they're playing each other. So that's what's fascinating to me. We're going to see these quarterbacks face each other now. Okay.
The difference, the way I view Goff is how I view Tua, where they are certainly good enough to operate top 5 offenses in the NFL and win with, but they both have ceilings. Neither one plays clean. They always throw picks in big games. The pressure hurts them more than it hurts other quarterbacks. Stafford can make throws under pressure. He can make throws from the crazy arm angles that we've seen him make. Mahomes like, where you could say Mahomes is Stafford like with some of those throws. Throwing the football for Stafford is easy. You see what I'm saying? So Goff has, to me, and that's just how I look at it. He's like Tua. They just have that ceiling. And I'm with you. I'm not saying system quarterbacks. These are winning. These are, yes, you can win with starting quarterbacks in the NFL, top 5 offenses. You can't fake that. So Goff is certainly good.
I mean, that's what's great about the NFL, for all of the changes, all the evolutions. all the flags and fines that drive us nuts. It's as true as it's always been. Which quarterbacks can make plays when they're pressured? Which quarterbacks are sitting ducks? Which quarterbacks make plays? Josh Allen can stiff arm a D lineman with one hand, and his feet are all messed up, and he's got a strong enough arm to throw it across his body, across the field, to convert a 3rd and long. Are you really saying that about Jared Goff? Are you really saying that about Tua Tagovailoa? No. I think you might be saying it about Jordan Love for many years. And that's why we're all in on Love. But there's some quarterbacks who can make that play, and then there's some quarterbacks who can't. And it's really hard to jump from one bucket to the other. I feel like you kind of are in one category. Right? And that's not a knock. Tua might win a Super Bowl. This offense is futuristic. It's everything we've been saying all year. I love it. And I think Tua has some strengths. Just like Jared Goff has some strengths. They could get to the Super Bowl. They could win the Super Bowl. But if we're just looking at the quarterback position, if you're facing one of those guys, pressure is everything because you know that you're going to take away everything if you can just get some pressure. And that was the case in the 90s, in the 80s, the 70s.
Always.
I'm here at Hagemeister Park. I got a picture of the 1920s Packers behind me in leather. They don't even have helmets on in this picture, do they? No helmets. But this is pre-leather helmet. I'm sure it was the case back then. Okay. So you're going Rams.
I am. I just, like I said, it's until Detroit's defense. I'm not buying into no defense in the playoffs. I'm not going with you yet.
But, oh my God, Jim, imagine Ford Field hosting a playoff game. That's got to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that place is going to be Metallica, rock concert, insanity. And they do have Jahmyr Gibbs. They do have David Montgomery. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Josh Reynolds. There's weapons to work with still.
I'm not saying they're not going to score.
With one of the best offensive lines. And my argument for Detroit is they will force a turnover that would flip the game with that crowd behind them.
And that would be I was smiling again because I was thinking, I could see the Rams winning 37-30, one of those crazy games. But I could, to your point, I think I always say it's like that big tennis match, who breaks serve, who gets that first turnover.
Oh, man, you're bringing me back to tennis with my brother. He was so patient. Just volleying back and forth, waiting for me to screw up. That's why he always took me down to tennis.
It's funny how when you play tennis, though, you study your opponent and all right, I can outlast him. He'll make the mistake. If I just outlast it, I can volley.
But to use that analogy, that might work in a wild card round. To win Super Bowls, you need a slammer. You need a tomahawk. You need an aggressive, violent volley. You can't just play patty cake 4 games in a row.
Last game, Philly-Tampa.
Philly-Tampa. Who do you got and why?
Oh, this game, I can't stand Tampa. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you for your investment that Tyler is awesome. And that's what I love about gambling, the NFL. Tyler had a Tampa playoff futures bet that cashed in. But what's crazy to me about this game, I want to go hard on, I want to go all in on Philly. But they're so bad on defense. Yeah. It's exactly what I just said about Detroit. I will say about Philly. I don't know what I'm getting on that. That defense, their rankings are garbage. They're bottom in their low 20s in every important category. They're not close. It's not. But I don't think Tampa's good enough. I don't think Baker is healthy enough or good enough to really exploit. Because as bad as Philly's defense is, if Baker was healthy and they were those receivers are going to blow Philly up. But I don't trust Baker's health. I don't trust Baker. I don't trust Tampa. I'm going to take the team that I at least know has a Super Bowl pedigree, I'm going to take Philly. And I hate the game.
As everyone expected into this season, a playoff game will boil down to Matt Patricia matching wits with Baker Mayfield. That is what the people want. That's what the people get. Now we're going to see.
Who do you think?
Tampa. Tampa will win. Philly's a wreck. I don't know where Philly even begins to try to fix this. I think losing both coordinators was massive. They've got talent. I mean, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Maybe they're able to flip the switch offensively, but they ain't flipping it defensively.
I'm not worried about the offense.
Anybody.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the offense. Look at this, Tyler. Points per play, 29th, Philly. Yards per play, 24th. Third down, 31st. Those are bottom, like you're picking in the top 5, top 10 in the draft with those numbers. Garbage. The pen. You can't wear a pencil with those numbers.
I know. I think I'll pick Tampa Bay just because
right.
We were so in on Tampa back in. No. I would be worried about the ribs for Baker Mayfield. He just hasn't looked that great since that injury.
Carolina should have won that game.
I can't get by Carolina.
That's what I'm struggling with. Like Carolina should have beat them. Or not should have. They had every opportunity to beat Tampa. I can't get that out of my head right now. But that Philly defense, garbage.
That's the thing. Even with the ribs, even with how Tampa's offenses have looked the last couple of weeks, Philly has looked worse. Philly has looked terrible against not good teams. Arizona, the Giants. God, they've just been abysmal to watch. I think Tampa has a little bit more momentum than Philly. I think they're going into this dance a little more confidence in their formula to win a playoff game.
There's something going on with Philly and that head coach.
What do you think it is?
I don't think the players are into him.
Why is that?
Because the coordinators are gone, and I think they must have been holding it together a little bit more than we knew. They're not buying into this guy right now. Their answers are very, you know what I mean? They're not like coming out with like, when they're getting asked like, what's going on? What's wrong with this year? You just hear the general stuff, but it's just too vague. It's not, we need to do this. We believe. They're not coming out with those strong statements. Like, no, we believe. We know we can do this. It's almost like we don't know what's going on. Like, we need the head coach to help us right now. Like, we're struggling. That's my take on it. That's my read. There's something off with that. There's just something off. You talked about it before the season with the coordinators leaving to pay attention. Let's watch that. I think those guys are proving to be pretty good head coaches right now. I mean, they've done a pretty nice job as rookie coaches, I think. Don't you? As head coaches?
You raise such a great point. Jim, because I think so often you have to pay attention to what you don't hear on the outside at press conferences, in locker room interviews. Like what tone isn't being struck? And I hadn't thought of that with Nick Sirianni and the Eagles. The fact that they aren't just rushing to his defense and sounding overly optimistic about the state of affairs from the top down. But yeah, I mean, look at Indy with Shane Steichen. Look at the Cardinals with Jonathan Gannon. Like, we can make fun of him all we want for looking like Kendall Roy at the Living Plus speech back in the summer. Man, guys played for him.
They
played hard for him. Like they don't have much talent. They fought, and Indy fought. Then that speaks to coaching. So let's let it play out. Let's see what happens. But those losses were huge. I mean, if you're reaching for the Matt Patricia emergency button, things probably aren't great.
It's if they lose this game, that is, I think, a telling sign. That is a major failure of a season for a team. For where their expectations were. That comes down on the head man to be answerable to the owner on that one.
There's probably not nearly enough time here to get into all of the non-playoff talk, but whether it's Brian Daboll and Wink Martindale having this heated exchange per the New York Post and Wink just storming out. This is what's so hilarious about this time of year. It was a great report, very detailed, absolutely happened. And what happens in the Giants, I think the reason the Giants put it out there is like Wink Martindale didn't officially resign. It was he's pissed off at Brian Daboll for firing like his right-hand man on the defensive staff. So he just leaves, gets the hell out of Dodge. But he didn't officially resign, so the Giants are like putting this out there. Well, if he's gone, he better put in the proper paperwork. But what happens a day later? What's the official report? A mutual parting of ways. So that's really what happened here, Jim. Everybody's holding hands and singing a nice, harmonious hymn of sorts at Giants HQ, and they just part ways mutually. Everybody decides we're best off parting ways. But yeah, we talk about stuff that we get right. That was definitely something I got wrong. I thought the Giants would win the division. Hey, they beat Philly. They beat Philly in the last game. So maybe I'm right, but I really saw this season going better for the Giants. Injuries obviously were huge, but every team has injuries. They probably had a few more than most teams, but not good. It's going to be a big 2024 for the Giants.
Tyler, you would never believe the drama within coaching staffs, scouting staffs. It's just like any other industry, wherever you work, the cliques and the high school drama that we all experienced growing up, middle school drama. It exists in NFL locker rooms and buildings, cafeterias. I always said, you'll see the defensive coaches sitting together, the offensive coaches sitting together. Rarely do you see them really talk that much. The cliques. You see the certain guys that the guys that are hanging together, just like in high school. That table, I never see that guy sit at that table. And then to think about Wink Martindale, I learned a long time ago too with coaches. It's a tough industry. The firings. Sean Payton, when he took over, I remember he hired Gary Gibbs from Dallas as his defensive coordinator. And had nothing but respect, and you could tell that that was his hire. As his first head coach, your coordinators, that's your major hire, especially for Coach Payton, who's an offensive guy. It didn't work out, and Coach Payton moved on from him. And I just remember, like, man, these guys have to make tough decisions. And that was a professional parting of a firing, however you want to call it. But then you see when McDermott and Leslie Frazier, how that thing. We still don't know what really happened, even though we know. And Martindale and Daboll having blow-ups. That's the middle school. It's middle school. All the stuff we experienced never stops. It's all just ego stuff. It wasn't my fault. It was your fault.
Oh, my God. I mean, it's such a great point with everything that happens behind the scenes, because it's just a good reminder that when things are sold as peaceful and nothing to see here, we're all getting along, very rarely is that the case. Anywhere, especially when you're losing. I mean, losing kind of brings the warts to the surface, and then you need to burn those warts off one way or another, to use a very gross analogy. You've been involved with those warts. You've had to burn some off, haven't you, Jim?
Yeah, you went gross on us. But to your point, though, but it is gross. I mean, it really is. It's the gross side of the business. It really is.
Hey, speaking of warts, then, what about Pete Carroll in Seattle? What the hell happened there?
That is when sometimes I think you need to know, just try to have a little self-awareness when it's time to leave the party. It's I'm the last one looking around dancing. He's always the one out there throwing the football. Like, hey, Pete, like, I know you can still throw a football at your age. It's impressive. You can run down the field and sprint, and you have great energy, and you are healthy. But you are the last guy to me at the party right now. We're going to move this thing along. You and Gino, thank you. I think they need to make that next transition. Talking about tough decisions, that's got to be hard. Schneider, to me, Tyler, is as good a GM as there is in the NFL. Their drafts are good every year. We talk about their rookies every year. And if his vision is long-term, which is the GM's job for the owner, to keep this thing relevant year in and year out, I think it's time to move on. I'm okay with it. Like, I hate it. I respect, obviously, we respect what Pete Carroll's done in his career. You hate to see it go. It wasn't what he wanted, obviously, in his press conference. He wanted to coach. He wants to stay.
Isn't it sad? It's kind of sad. He wants to keep coaching and running and throwing a football. And this is what the good teams do. This is what the smart teams do. They strip emotion from the equation and they do what's right. They draft Jordan Love when it's going to make people uncomfortable. Seattle moves on from Pete Carroll when it's going to make Pete Carroll uncomfortable. I'm with you. Because I think initially news like this breaks and it's something that nobody was thinking about. He won a Super Bowl. Of course he'll be there as long as he wants to be there. No. Like, Seattle's been drafting pretty damn good. Arguably better than anybody the last few years. That speaks to the personnel staff. What's happening with that talent on Sundays? That's good, not great. You got to deal with San Francisco. You got to deal with Sean McVay and the Rams. Change is needed. So I think this was very, very forward thinking for Seattle. Whoever made the decision, however it went down, it could not have been easy. I mean, Schneider and Carroll have been joined at the hip for a long time.
That's tough. Tough. Yeah.
It had to have been extremely difficult to divorce. I mean, it's a divorce.
Hard to tell your brother or best friend that the party's over. The wife was excited for you to come over tonight, but it's time to shut this thing down. You're the last one.
I mean, basically, Pete Carroll is Elaine Bennis dancing at the office party, right? Thumbs out, limbs flailing uncontrollably.
It's funny.
Elaine, come on, let's settle down and go home.
In his press, in the press conference today, he was talking about how he still has energy and he feels great. And it's almost like, yeah, Pete, we know. Like, you've made that point to us. We see the highlights of you in practice. But it's not about your health right now. You are healthy enough, which is a great thing to anybody that's ever worked in football. It's like, if you can stay healthy in football, that's a good sign. It tells you have some work-life balance.
He does, but at the same time, it's kind of sad that there isn't something else out there for him.
He would be excited to,
I mean, you won at college, you won in the pros. Like, Pete, go with your family, ride off into the sunset.
You can show up every week on Fox. Whoever wants, you will get a job tomorrow as an analyst if you want to be around football. I'll never understand, Tyler. I will never understand how they don't want to get out of it. Yeah. The coaches, I don't.
It's we always come back to either Seinfeld or the Shawshank Redemption, right? Like the Shawshank Redemption is like, he's out of prison, he goes home, he doesn't really know what to do. What I'm out, but what do I do?
these football coaches, I think a lot of them get out. They're a little terrified of what's life going to be like.
It's real.
Yeah. When you're
But
not at
the
the
difference
office all
would
day, all
be
night.
there is a little difference in what Shawshank and what. Oh yeah.
So we had to hit pause there again because my buddy that bartends here at Hagemeister came over to say hello. So we don't even know where we were. Jim?
No, Tyler, I was laughing. It takes me back to our original days on this pod when we used to do. We were doing some heavy drinking on the pod. You know, the first. I'd say first good year and a half. Year maybe.
Well, it was the draft extravaganza that did not make its way to public domain. It was the Trevor Lawrence draft. That I really wish I would have recorded that and just would have kept it, maybe to leverage it against you if I ever needed something from you, Jim, because I'd say, look, I've got this content here that I can wield as a weapon because you said things on this that would be very damaging to your reputation. I'm just kidding. I would never do that to you.
No,
but that was fun.
It might help me get a job with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yes. I mean, you were a soothsayer. That's why I should have recorded it. It's pretty hilarious to tune into ESPN and hear some of the brightest media minds say the Atlanta Falcons should pursue Justin Fields when one Jim Monis here on the Go Long show advocated strongly and then some for the Atlanta Falcons to draft Justin Fields instead of Kyle Pitts. So you're right. It's 180. Should have recorded it because you'd be back in an NFL front office right now if that saw the light of day. What am I talking about?
The good part is it doesn't matter. But it's good to know that the Go Long, hey, we're just giving out some good advice on Go Long. Just good advice. That's all.
We try to hit more than we miss.
Oh, I do that every night. Especially when I'm betting on Evansville and Bradley tonight.
Jim, you bet on Evansville and Bradley?
Bradley had a nice run in the second half and covered, though, so we're happy.
I mean, do we need an intervention? Do I need to sit you down and talk about betting on Evanston versus Bradley?
No, I just need I need football on. There's no football.
Remember during COVID when there were no sports? You'd know better than me. Weren't people betting on like Russian arm wrestling or something? Like what
my horse racing? No, the only thing my horse racing account during COVID was scary. COVID, that was what scared me because the only thing that was going on really that I was betting on was horse racing. Now you could bet on basketball games, baseball. Korean baseball was big.
Korean baseball and horse racing.
But my horse racing account was ridiculous. Like it was, you didn't realize that there was horse racing going on everywhere, all over the world, all day long, basically.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So horses, like the jockeys, couldn't give each other COVID while they're on horses. Apparently,
I'm telling you, that sport is Teflon.
Oh my God! What a time! What a time! I mean, we can't forget what that year was like. Looking back. Oh, I was just hanging out with a Packer player out here for a story, and I guess everybody will see it here soon, but he hit it off with his wife during COVID, and so they were around each other all the time. It was right when they started dating. He's like, yeah, it's like we all did the same thing. Yeah, they were watching Tiger King, Last Dance. Everybody was doing the same thing.
Same thing.
At the same time, which is wild when you really think about millions of people stuck in their homes, unsure what in the hell was going on. Ugh. Glad we're talking about playoff games. It's traumatizing to think back to that. All right, Jim. Final thoughts? Anything?
No, this is the weekend, though. This is the best weekend of football, I think. Love it, love it. Just Agreed. For all the like, is Love going to upset Dallas? You know, what's that? That storyline to me is the one. Because that would set off all your mentor, Mike McCarthy, who you learned from. That will just send off so much if Dallas would lose to them.
It would. It'd make things quite interesting in Big D, which is a topic of discussion with Brett Favre. He played for Mike McCarthy. I asked him what would it be like in Dallas if they lose. And Jerry Jones was holding that press conference in the locker room after the game, and another playoff failure against the Green Bay Packers, his former team. They don't have an owner here in Green Bay. I know that.
All right. Goody can own Green Bay. Drafting Love.
He should be the executive of the year, Brian Gutekunst, for that choice alone.
I'm good with that.
It hasn't been perfect, right? They traded Rasul Douglas to Buffalo, and all he did was single-handedly win them a game against New England. But, man, the quarterback position is too important. Let's shut her down right there. Jim, good to see you. Let's get together in person very soon, and I'll be back out there in Western New York to keep this pod going.
Yeah, we got to get together at Fatty for sure. I forgot I was texting with Chris during that Miami game. He was down in Miami for that game down in Fort Lauderdale. Oh, yeah. I was going to text him if they lost, if he was going to stay down there for the week. But then they won, so I didn't. But anyway.
He made it back safely?
I haven't heard from him. I'll check it out. We might have it. We may meet up at Seneca. That's our headquarters. Chris and I have some meetings there. Our fatty headquarters at Seneca. Blackjack table.
I'm worried about you too. Bradley versus Davidson. I even forgot the teams. They were. Evans. Oh, sorry.
Good second half.
Have a good night, everyone.